Hello and welcome to nature photography during lockdown. We are locked in. We're taking photos of things that we've either brought inside from nature or that remind us of nature and making them look like they were taken outdoors. This is part 2 of part 2, the second half of part 2, where I'm going to edit the second photo that I took in part 1. Now, if that is so confusing for you, it's even confusing for me. I've linked the playlist up here. Go and have a look at the first 2 videos and come straight back, and then don't go away. Alright, so here we are in Lightroom, and I have 6 images here which I took with the fern in the foreground, and then in behind I had other pot plants, and then also the canvas in the background. So you can see with this first image here, you can see the pink of that protea flower from my canvas in the background there, which doesn't look great. The focus on this image here was a bit too soft for me. I don't really like that one. So I took some others. This one here, that leaf there is very distracting for me, and plus there's a lot of pink over here. I didn't really like that. This image here is actually the one I'm going to use because I liked the fact that it has a little bit of pink up here, but not a great deal, and it also has the leaf. The focus is quite good across this middle section of the leaf here, and it does have these blown highlights here a little bit, but I can get rid of those. So we're going to use this one. So I've done a few minor edits to it here in Lightroom. I've taken the temperature up to 5000. I have turned the contrast up 10. I have taken the highlights down 100. I have put the whites up 50. I've taken the blacks down 3, and that is all I have done. So now I will right click it, go down to edit in and across to edit in Adobe Photoshop, and I'll show you how we're going to fix this one up. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and what is the first thing that we do? We make a copy of our background layer. So just grab your layer here, left click, drag it down to the little plus down the bottom, let go. That will make a copy of your background layer. That's one way of doing it. You can also Control Command Z to undo that. You can also press Control or Command J, and that will also make a copy of your background layer. You never want to work on your background layer. You always want to make a copy, both so that you can see before and afters easily, and plus you don't want to do edits to your original image, so you always want to be working on that copy. So for this image here, we need to take out all this pink here, obviously, because that's not doing a really good job. So all this pink area over here, I want to get rid of these highlights over here because they're a bit distracting, and I'm going to change the color of this background here behind the leaf too, because I'm not really happy with that. So what I'm going to do this, there's a number of ways you could do this, but I'm going to use a solid color layer above this layer here, and then I'm going to use the blend modes up here, and I'm going to use the color blend mode, which will apply the color across the entire layer, and then we'll go from there and I'll show you what we're going to do. So the first thing that we need to do in order to do this is to come over here and pick your eyedropper tool, and I'm going to choose a color from up here somewhere in this area. Maybe that color there we'll choose. Then we can come down here and do a solid color layer, and that will do a solid color layer with the color that we chose with the eyedropper. So we just click OK on that, and then change our blend mode up here to color, and you can see that has applied that color across the entire layer. So instantly we have got rid of all this pink over here, and that looks really quite natural. All of that pink is gone, and it just looks like light shining through a pale green leaf. You know, it's really good. And then over here, these highlights have turned slightly green. There's still that blown out area there, which I can get rid of in a minute. And these highlights down here look good. The background looks okay, but I may choose a different color to do that one. So, and of course it's applied the color across the entire leaf, and we don't want that either. So what we're going to do is click on our mask over here and then press Control or Command I to invert the mask. So that has turned our mask completely black and none of the color is showing through onto our layer. So now what we're going to do is just brush it into the areas where we need it. So come over here and choose your brush tool. You can also press B on your keyboard to choose the brush tool. Make sure the opacity is set to 100% and the flow we're going to set somewhere around 50%, 51 will do. Now what flow does, flow is basically how much of the effect or color will be applied when you brush across the layer. So it's basically how much paint is on your brush. So I'll just quickly show you this. So if I turn the flow down to about 20% there, 23, and I just brush across here, you see we get a slight amount of color there. If I turn the flow up to 100%, we get 100% of the color. So it's basically how much paint is on your brush. So in this instance, we wanted it at about 50%, 49 will do. And then it's simply a case of holding Alt or Option, and you can change the size of your brush by sliding to the right or to the left with your mouse. And you can push your cursor up towards the top of the screen to make it softer, or pull it down to the bottom of the screen to make it harder. So we want a really soft brush, so we'll just go to 0% hardness and just brush this color in where we need it. Make a smaller brush and just brush that in. That looks with a little bit of pink in there, a little bit maybe there. Down here there was some. So there'll be some areas where it's not looking good, perhaps where it might look a little bit dark, but I'll go over here and we'll do this bit. I might color that bit in there too. Just getting around these highlights here, all the way down to the bottom there. So you can see how this is looking really good, and we haven't had to select anything out and use the clone tool and copy things around, and it's just a much easier solution. I might just brush in a little bit of this color into these bits here inside the leaves. There, just a little bit there. I might go into there, why not? And around here as well. And there's a little bit of that color up in there as well, but I'll get that out with the background layer. So that looks pretty good. So you can see here before that layer, after that layer, that's looking pretty good. I'm very happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is choose a different color to work on the background. So we'll do that now. Okay, so we'll come back over here and choose our eyedropper tool again and choose a different color. What I'm going to do, because this area here is quite dark, I'm going to choose a much lighter green this time. So I might even try this color here, and we'll see what happens. So we go down here again to our create solid color layer there. It's very similar to the previous layer, but I am colorblind. Okay, now change the blend mode to color. Yeah, that is very similar. That's the same color, surely. I'm just going to delete that one because I don't think like that. I've selected that color, yeah. Solid color. There we go. That's better. It didn't work the first time. I thought it looked a bit strange. So we'll select our mask there. Hang on. Change it to color blend mode first. Select our mask. Control or Command I to invert it. Grab our brush tool again over here. Make sure your foreground color is white. Same settings on our brush, and we'll just paint in back here and see what effect this has. I may just undo that. I'm going to change the flow down to about 10%, maybe the opacity down to maybe 70, and see what that does. I'm just going to zoom in a bit, press the space bar and click and drag to move around in my image, and just paint in here this color. That's not looking too bad. I'm kind of liking it. We'll just get in around the edges of these leaves here. Make it look as realistic as possible, make it blend in. There are ways we can make it blend better, and I'll show you in a minute. You want to try and paint with as big a brush as you can. It just gives you, you get sort of sharper edges and lines when you use a smaller brush, but sometimes you have to get into small areas, so you do that. If you paint any on areas that you don't want, you can of course just change back to your background color, change your brush to black, and just paint those areas in again. So like if I press X, I can change and I can just take it off the edges of these leaves here, because I've got a little bit on there. It doesn't look great. I'm not really liking that, to be honest. So what I might do is I'm going to delete this layer, I'm going to drag it to the trash. I'm going to create another solid color layer, and I'll show you another way of doing this. Change this to color and select our mask, and we will invert it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the lasso tool, I'm going to select around this area here so that I don't paint over the fern leaves at all. So come up here, grab your lasso tool, we'll zoom in, and I'm just going to, just over the areas where the background layer on the background color, I'm taking out is, we just select around there. I'm not being too perfect about this, guys. We're just going to just select roughly in there. Whoop, that was pretty bad, but we can fix it up in a minute. I won't worry about that bit down in the middle there because it's already green. We'll go around here, down here. Don't want that bit either because that's already green in there. Oh, that was terrible, Barry. What are you doing? And we'll just go up and across, whoops, and just finish that there. And I'll come up here and grab this bit in a second. So I just shift to add to the selection, just come up there. There we go, shift to add that bit in there as well. Now I'll add shift again, come down and get this little bit down here. Might even grab this bit here as well. And that in there. Maybe this bit here. There we go. So if you want to subtract from your selection, hold Alt or Option. And just get that little bit of that leaf out of there. I don't really want to color that if I can help it. Maybe up here too. All right, so that'll do. That is fine. Now what I can do is I can just paint. So I'll grab my brush again and I can just paint inside of that there. But what I will do first is come up here to my selection, quick selection tool, go into select and mask, and I will just actually remove, first of all, remove these bits here by holding Alt, because that's going across the edge of the leaf there too much. Now what I'm going to do is feather it so it'll make it look a bit more realistic. The colors will blend in together a bit more. We'll feather it about 4 pixels, 3.4 pixels, that'll do. Okay, and then grab the brush again. You can type B for brush if you like. And now make sure your foreground color is white and paint. And you can see I can paint like a crazy person because I'm not going outside of that selection. If I control H to hide that, that looks fairly good around the leaf, but not good here on this line. So I'm just going to brush in a little bit on there as well. Oh, hang on, I've still got my selection active. I'll control H to bring it back, then control or command D to get rid of it. Just paint a bit on there. Now this area up in here doesn't look very good. I don't like this defined line here. Although that could be the edge of a leaf, couldn't it? In reality. That's not too bad. I'm not minding that at all, really. So what we'll do is the same thing down here in the bottom section that I did up the top. I'll grab my lasso tool and I will just select an area down here that I want to paint in. I might even paint over this leaf too, because I think that leaf down the bottom there needs a bit of colour. So I'll just select around that there for now, and then I'll go in and get a bit more, technical inside these leaves, and I'll just speed this up and we'll come back when it's done so you don't have to sit here watching me do this. Okay, that's a pretty good selection. So we're going to select and mask again and put our feathering up to 3.4 like we had it on the other one. Just click OK there. And then we'll grab our brush tool. We've still got the same color. So painting in there and making it look a lot more decent, I think. That's pretty good. Control H to hide that there. That's pretty good. I like it. I've just got this defined line here that I'll fix up in a minute. I'll show you how to do that. But that looks pretty good. Alright, so there's just a few little bits that are sort of bothering me. I'm not sort of liking the colour blending up in here at all, and I don't like this bit of the fern here. It's a bit distracting, and I want to get rid of these highlights here as well. So let's work on that, shall we? Now, what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to go Control Alt Shift E. That's Command Option Shift E on a Mac to create a visible stamped layer up here. So that just takes all these layers here, blends them together, puts them up here on their own layer. And now I can go to my lasso tool, just get this here, this bit I don't want. There, come up to Edit, Content Aware Fill, and then we just choose what we want to put in there. I think we'll just copy over this bit. So this is the new Content Aware Fill dialog in Photoshop 2020. I'm using Photoshop 21.1.0 release. Look at that, absolutely beautiful. Click OK. That will do the trick. Control or Command D to deselect. There's a little bit of a line there that looks unrealistic, so I'll grab the healing brush tool and just get that looking a bit more realistic in there. That's better. That looks a lot softer and less distracting. So now we need to work on these highlights over here. So what I'll do is maybe choose this darker color and just blend that in over the top. Oh, I went up to the edge of the document there. That doesn't help things. Maybe that's looking pretty bad. Undo all of that. I'll choose a color from over here somewhere, maybe this one, so that I don't run into trouble. That's looking better. A bit up here as well, in there. That's pretty good. That looks alright. I'm going to put a vignette around it anyway, so that stuff will be blended out. I'm wondering if a little bit of this color up in here might also work up in this bit. No, I don't like that line it's making. What I'll do is just choose maybe a lighter color and just blend that in here a bit. There we go. Yeah. No, don't like that either. Do that. Just zoom in here and we'll take maybe this here and just, oh, that got the leaf. Make my brush a little bit harder. Blend that in there like that, like that. Not really liking that either. I might have a go with the smudge tool over here. So over here in below your gradient tool, here you'll have either your blur tool, which is the little droplet looking, or the smudge tool with the little finger on it. We'll have a go with the smudge tool here and see what we can do. We'll just smudge that bit in there. So you can see this just smudges things. It's as though you're running your finger across the document and across the image and making it blurry. That's really good. I might smudge these lines here where these colors are changing just to blend them through a little bit into each other. That will be fine. We'll leave it there for now. Maybe these highlights down in the bottom corner here are not so great either. So back to my healing brush tool. I might grab like this green up here and just paint in there a little bit with those. Let's see. That's not bad. Maybe continue that down a bit because it's not really, yeah. That's okay, that's pretty good. All right, now, so I'll just show you the before and after here. So what we started with was this, and now we've gone to this. So that is a much more realistic looking nature photo, isn't it? So what I'm going to do is show you how to create a vignette. So we will get into that. All right, just before I show you how to do the vignette, there's a couple of extra bits that I'm not really impressed with, so I'm going to fix them up here. There's these, oh, sorry about that. These lines over here, you can see, you can't see because I'll select the move tool. See these lines here? They were actually in the photograph itself, but they're very distracting and I don't like them. So I'm going to use the healing brush here and just maybe paint in some stuff from maybe, I don't know, over here somewhere. We'll just make our brush really soft and just brush in there, just make them a little bit, just clicking and moving around there. That's, yeah, I'm not really sure about that either. I'll undo all of that. I might use my smudge tool again and we'll just smudge it and see what happens here. That's much better. There we go, just smudging those bits out. That looks better. There's this line here too over this side that I'm not really happy with, so we'll smudge this out as well. Just wait for Photoshop to do its thing there. That looks pretty good. There might be also this one here that I don't enjoy. The smudge tool works fairly slow, or at least it is for me. I think my computer needs a bit of a clean out. It's running very slow at the moment, needs a bit of a tune up. And then I might just smudge in this bit here at the edge. Okay, so now we'll get on with our vignette. Now the way we do this is we're going to grab our elliptical marquee tool up there, and I'm going to just click and drag an ellipse around this here. Now because I want this to go around the fern in that shape, I'm going to have to angle this a little bit. So we come up here to select and transform selection, and just when the cursor changes to those two arrows there, so you just drag your cursor outside of the box and it'll change like that to those two arrows there that let you know that you can rotate it. And I'm just going to rotate and maybe pull this corner down a little bit just so the fern is in the middle of this. Maybe pull it up that way a little bit as well, and I'll tick yes on that. Now we're going to come down here and we're going to create a curves adjustment layer. So click on curves, that'll create a curves adjustment layer. Now we're going to drag it down a bit to make it darker. Now you can see it's actually making the center of the image darker, which is not what we want, of course. But what we do is come to our mask, make sure it's selected, press Ctrl or Command I to invert that. Now obviously that doesn't look very good, but what we can do is blur the mask. So we'll come up here and we'll go to filter, blur, and Gaussian blur, however you like to pronounce that. Now you want a very high value. As you can see, I've set it to 516.4 pixels there, which actually looks quite good. Now if you want to see how it's looking, it's a good idea to go to zoom out. So I'm pressing Control or Command minus here to zoom out, and I will change the radius here just so you can see what it looks like. See, so you wouldn't leave it like that because you can definitely see that effect. So we'll go back up to try 240 pixels. Still don't like it there. 309 pixels. That's not bad. I'll zoom back in, Control or Command plus. That's pretty good. I'm going to click OK and I'll just have a look at the before and after. That's quite nice. Now what I'm going to do is do the reverse over the fern. So I'm going to brighten up the fern. Actually, I might even, you can always double click the layer thumbnail here to get back to your curves layer, and I'm just going to bring it down a bit more. I kind of like that there. I like that. It's very strong in the top bottom corner here, but I don't mind that. It's not too bad. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control click on the mask. So that's going to select our mask there, and we'll create another curves adjustment layer. So it'll put the same mask on top of that there. And then I'm just going to Control or Command I to invert that and raise that is too much. Just up a little bit on our fern there. We can go out a little bit to zoom out and see what it's like. So that's creating quite a nice effect. So I might leave it here for this video. Of course, you could spend a lot more time doing this. I mean, we're in lockdown, we've got a lot of time on our hands, right? But I'll leave it here for this one. This is looking quite good as it is, but what I might do to this is put maybe some contrast onto the leaf, maybe get rid of a few of these highlight areas here on the leaf so they're not so blown out. I might use another, maybe another color fill layer on it or something, but it's up to you. Experiment, play around. It's digital photography. This is a great way to learn Photoshop, is by doing stuff like this. Play around with it and see what you can come up with. But that is not bad. We'll see the before and now the after. It's pretty good. It's not exactly the effect I was after, but I'm pretty happy with it so far. So there you have it. That is a pretty convincing result from a photo that was taken indoors using just pot plants. So if you've got more pot plants than I have, you can create a photo that has a really amazing outdoor looking effect. Nature photography during lockdown will be back next week, and we will be exploring an element of nature that is in most of our homes. So don't miss that. Please subscribe and ding that notification bell so you get notified when that video comes out. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, there's a comment section down below that is just for those things. So please put a comment in there. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Barry Callister of Photographer's Freedom. Stay in here, take some wicked shots, and I'll see you soon.